When my mother died, I was very young, and my father sold me while yet my tongue could scarcely cry, weep, 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 weep. So your chimneys I sweep, and in soot I sleep. There's little Tom Dacre who cried when his head, that curled like a lamb's back, was shaved, so I said, Hush, Tom, never mind it, for when your head's bare, you know that the soot cannot spoil your white hair. And so he was quiet, and that very night, as Tom was a-sleeping, he had such a sight, that thousands of sweepers, Dick, Joe, Ned, and Jack, were all of them locked up in coffins of black. And by came an angel who had a bright key, and he opened the coffins and set them all free. Then down a green plain, leaping, laughing, they run, and wash in a river, and shine in the sun. Then naked and white, all their bags left behind, they rise upon clouds and sport in the wind. And the angel told Tom if he'd be a good boy, he'd have God for his father and never want joy. So Tom awoke, and we rose in the dark and got with our bags and brushes to work. Though the morning was cold, Tom was happy and warm, so if all do their duty, they need not fear harm.
At an early age, Blake experienced visions and saw a tree filled with angels. He incorporates many of these visions into his writings. In the poem that we're presenting today, Tom has a vision, so this must be inspired by by Blake's visions. Due to lack of attention to his work, Blake eventually became paranoid and impoverished, and many critics referred to Blake as an unfortunate lunatic. Eventually, Blake passed away in 1827 due to an unknown illness.
The speaker opens the poem by telling the audience that his mother died when he was very young. He does not disclose how old he was, however. He then continues on and informs the audience that his father sold him before he could even speak. When the speaker says tongue, he's really referring to his voice. And when he says my voice and could scarcely cry, he's really saying before he could even cry. This is known as metonymy. The speaker goes on to say, so your chimneys I sweep, and in soot I sleep. In the late 1800s and early 1900s, chimney sweeping was often a young boy's job because their bodies were small enough to fit in the chimney. This leads to the assumption that his father sold him to someone who owned a chimney sweeping company. The speaker also claims that he sleeps in soot. This informs us that his living conditions were not the best. In the second stanza, the speaker discusses telling Tom not to worry about his recently shaven head. He claims that it is not a bad thing, but the exact opposite. The speaker tells Tom he will be happy that there will no longer be soot in his hair if he does not have any. The speaker also describes Tom's hair as white, even though Tom is a young boy. This leads to the assumption that the speaker means light blonde hair when he says the word white. Tom's white hair symbolizes youth as it has yet to darken with age. He also uses a simile comparing Tom's hair to that of a lamb's. The lamb symbolizes innocence. By shaving Tom's head, his innocence is lost. The speaker's words are enough for Tom to accept the loss. However, who shaved Tom's head is kept from the audience. There is no one to blame for stealing Tom's innocence. The speaker's diction connects that deeper meaning. Tom's white hair symbolizing innocence and the black soot symbolizing evil.
In stanza 3, William Blake uses visual imagery to say that the boys are locked up in coffins of black. The coffins of black are supposed to represent the child laborers being trapped in the chimneys and the soot. This is supposed to represent that they are trapped in death and that this is not a good situation for them to be in. He also uses metonymy to represent all the children of the world by listing out the boys' names. The boys' names are very common names, so it's easy to relate with other children too. The overall message in this stanza is Tom's fatigue and his despairingness about his work in the chimneys. And this is shown by his quiet behavior, and you can smell the soot and dirt around them. In stanza 4, William Blake uses visual imagery to describe the angel who had the bright key and the green plains. He also uses this to describe the sun the boys felt on their skin, the water that they experienced, and also the smell of the new fresh air. This is supposed to represent Tom's new hopeful outlook on this situation. Before they were trapped, it was dirty and grimy, but now they are set free into this newfound heaven. William Blake uses the experiences of the boys as an allusion to Jesus Christ's resurrection. Like Jesus Christ, they were encased in a dark tomb and set free by an angel. They were set free into their heaven and were washed and baptized in the river like Jesus was. This is supposed to let the boys be shown in a more respective, positive light when comparing them to Jesus. In this society, the kids were not seen as respectful, hence why they were forced to do child labor such as be in the chimney sweeps. William Blake is trying to change that and show them to be innocent and pure. Stanzas 3 and 4 both include 11 syllables in each line. It also follows the A-A-B-B rhyme pattern. Also in stanzas 3 and 4, it shows the thematic shift. The shift happens when the angel arrives. Before the angel arrives, it is very devastated, there is pain everywhere, and there's coffins of black. The angel arrives with her bright key, and the imagery changes into a more hopeful, peaceful area. William Blake has a bitter tone towards the child labor that is happening in his society. He is also hopeful that this will change, either with this poem and with bringing awareness to it.
In the first line, Blake describes their whiteness. This new whiteness represents the purity and innocence of the children, untainted by childhood labor. The second line mentions all their bags have been left behind, and these bags are an example of metonymy, and this metonymy represents the children. The last line talks about Tom having God for his father, and this represents how Tom had lost his father at a young age and his yearning for someone to take his place.
Now Tom's picture-perfect dream ends along with the positive diction as they awake at dark for work. The end of this dream can be seen as symbolic for the children's short, peaceful pass into their painful, labor-intensive reality. This abrupt change from peacefulness to pain is further supported by the sudden change in rhyme scheme. The AABB rhyme scheme that has been used for the entire poem is now replaced with slant rhyme, which helps the poet make the reader feel uneasy. Next, the speaker tells us that although the morning was cold, Tom is still happy and warm. Tom lives by the new morale that if he does his duty, he does not need to fear misfortune. Tom's innocence is creating this coping mechanism, but it does not feel genuine. Again, slant rhyme is used and makes the reader further question what they are reading. This contrast between the angelic dream and this dark reality creates a deeply ironic scene. Tom is attempting to make himself feel fine, but he is nothing close to it.